Hey Jesse, you can stop stretching, and so could you. As a matter of fact, what if I told you there was some way that you could spend your time gaining flexibility that didn't involve having to do this? Would you be interested? Well, that's actually where research comes to the rescue, because in a recent study published in 2021, a meta-analysis of 11 different studies and over 452 participants showed that engaging in a dedicated strength training routine was just as effective as engaging in a daily stretch routine when it comes to increasing your flexibility and overall joint range of motion. So what does that mean for you? Well, I'm about to make your life a whole hell of a lot easier, because I'm about to address the elephant in the room here. Let's be honest, you're not stretching right now anyway, are you? You see, when it comes to my priority list, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna do my core, I'm gonna do some cardio, and then maybe I'll stretch. And the first thing that's gonna get cut every single time when I'm a little bit short on time, which is always, is gonna be my stretching. And if you're like me, you're doing yourself a disservice, because we know flexibility is important. Some have even called it the one true fountain of youth. In other words, if there's only one thing you could do, there are people out there that think it should be stretching. But the truth is, a lot of times the discomfort of stretching alone is enough to chase people away from doing it at all. And with no alternative, well, where do you go from there? Or if the idea of a separate stretching routine is enough to cause more of a time crunch in your already crunched schedule, it's just not working for you. But if we can lean into something you're already doing, and then I can show you a way to do it a little bit differently to get the results that you're looking for, well, that would be actually the holy grail. And guess what? I'm about to do that for you. Because I'm gonna help you to modify the exercises that you're already doing in your workouts to make them much more effective at increasing range of motion and flexibility. And it starts right here with a basic exercise like the lat pull down. When it comes to the lat pull down, what you would do is incorporate a deliberate stretching set. Perform about 5 or 6 repetitions, exaggerating the end points to maximize that stretch on the lats and get that full contraction on the way back. And as you notice there, I actually dropped the weight quite significantly here, because it has nothing to do with the weight as long as there's enough there to create that loaded tension that we're looking for. And as I get to that end range, I'm just gonna hold it, sink into the stretch, and allow it to open up my shoulders and back and increase the overall length of those lats over time. Overall, you're looking for about 5 or 6 repetitions with accumulation of about 30 seconds of stretch on this exercise. Now, each of these 5 to 6 repetitions will be held for about 5 seconds in that stretch position. So what you're basically accumulating is about 30 seconds of total stretch. And this is actually nice because it sort of overlaps with one of my good friend Andrew Huberman's recommendation of how much stretching is actually required to cause a formative change. That being said, the other nice thing about this protocol is that it doesn't conflict with what we already know could happen with static stretching performed before an exercise. We know that that can sometimes limit or attenuate the output of strength and force generation if you do it right before a workout. Well, this is acting more like a dynamic stretch, because you're only holding each one of them for those 5 seconds, and you're kind of moving through those repetitions. So it can actually be performed as a final set of an exercise that you're already doing, rather than having to go and carve out a whole separate stretching time. And what I'm going to suggest is you take these common exercises from this video and start to incorporate them right away. But don't worry, I've got you covered, because I'm going to make a dedicated series here for the best way to do this on a workout by workout basis, depending upon what muscle groups you're training. Now, it doesn't end here, because if I want to do this with the chest, all I have to do is step into a crossover machine and then get myself into that position where I'm opening up the chest. And you can see I'm deliberately trying to drop my elbows down a little bit and get my hands a little bit higher, just to sink into the pecs a little bit more and get both the pec major and minor on this. And I come across all the way into a full adduction and perform this as I recommended before for a total of about 6 repetitions. Remember, it's about 30 seconds of accumulated stretch on this exercise, and we move on. When it comes to the triceps, we want to take advantage of the overhead tricep extension, because it's going to put us in that really good stretch position for the triceps, but it also, again, finishes in that really nice overhead tall posture position that we're all looking for. So if we do this exercise the same way, looking for those deliberate stretches in the bottom range of motion, holding as we feel more and more comfortable in that stretch, and then of course going into that full extension, we have that opportunity to get really nice and tall at the beginning and end of every single rep. Now, these are just being shown to you as representative examples that you can start doing right now. If you want to string them all together into one little routine, be my guest. Just understand that you're not necessarily saving the time that you're already spending on stretching. However, if you find it to be more enjoyable, and therefore something you're going to stick with more than something you already hate to do, which is static stretching, then that's where the advantage is. When it comes to biceps, one of my favorite ways to do this would be on an incline bench and an incline dumbbell curl. And you can see you can easily get into this nice stretch position because you can pronate the forearm at the bottom of every rep. You can even get that triceps contraction that I talk about that will enhance the relaxation of the biceps and allow for a greater stretch. When it comes to the lower body, one of the easiest ways to do this for the hamstrings and even the glutes is going to be an RDL. But I would opt for like a dumbbell version here because we know we can control the weight. Because remember, we're using lighter weights to do these exercises. This is not about loading up to overload and create hypertrophy. It's about loading to create a loaded stretch. And you don't really need a lot of weight to do that. But the same protocol applies here. I don't really need to accumulate more than 30 seconds or so of this holding stretch position across the entire set. Now when it comes to quads, I have to go back to one of my all-time favorite anyway, and it's the Bulgarian split squat. And as you'll see here, I'm actually getting bigger bang for my buck because I'm hitting both legs at the same time. Predominantly, it's going to be the one that's kicked back up onto the bench. Because you'll see as I sink down into that, yes, I'm getting a big stretch on my hip flexors and quads because of that fully bent knee position, but I'm also getting the glute stretch on the other leg that's out in front of me. It's just a good opportunity to go down with the safety of the floor there to catch me should I either lose my balance or get too fatigued. But again, it shouldn't happen if you're using the appropriate weights here. But even when I come up out of the rep, remember it's full range of motion all the way up and down, I can get into nice full hip extension on that leg to really reinforce the fact that I'm trying to increase the flexibility of my overall hip structure without having to resort to that dedicated static stretching on those hip flexors to do it. And when it comes to the delts, the reality is that stretching is actually quite awkward because not a lot of movements we do put us in the position where the middle delts especially get put on stretch. But if we realize that we have to just take that muscle that attaches from here to here and bring it across the body to put a stretch on it, and nothing we do down here is really going to be adequate enough, well, then we know what type of exercise to do. So a sword raise is a great option because you can see it starts with that arm across the body, putting that middle delt on stretch. And I bring my arm up and across in what we use as a PNF pattern in physical therapy to get me through this full but natural range of motion. And I use the same approach of the prolonged stretching in that down and across position because we know, again, we can attack that middle delt and put it on stretch. So you might be asking yourself, if I'm going to do this as part of my workout, wouldn't it be affected by the split that I'm actually following right now? And the answer is yes. You see, if you have a tight chest and you're doing a bro split, doing this stretch only once per week is not going to cut it. You're going to need to increase the frequency with which you do it. But you can actually make it pretty easy because you're already working out. So if you incorporate that extra chest stretch at the end of whatever workout you're doing, it's only going to take you an extra 30 seconds and you'll accumulate that volume that you need to cause that effective change. What's even nicer here is that, let's say again that you hate stretching in the first place and it's the first thing that you skip, maybe just by disguising it as a part of a workout, you'll forget what you're doing and you'll actually get it done this time. So maybe you could just take a deep breath, a sigh of relief because that stretching routine that you saw on YouTube that you tried to do and only did for 2 days and stopped doing, well, maybe you don't have to do it after all because now you've got a different alternative. You see, I'm going to put together a series for you guys. I'm going to link them for you right here when they're available. In the meantime, I'll let YouTube decide what you should see. Also, if you're looking for a science-based program, guys, you can find them over at ATHLEAN-X.com. If you haven't done so, make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video when we put one out. All right, guys, see you soon.